At 70, Elena thought it was just a small fall. She was still awake, still speaking, still able to stand a few moments later. So she told herself it was nothing serious. But over the next few weeks, something changed, not just in her body, but in the way she lived every ordinary day. Elena was the kind of person people described as independent. At 70, she still managed her own home, cooked her own meals, watered her plants, folded her laundry, and liked doing small things without needing help. She was not trying to prove anything to anyone. She simply valued being able to take care of herself. That morning felt completely ordinary. Elena woke up, moved slowly like she usually did, and began making breakfast. Nothing dramatic, no warning signs, no sense that anything unusual was about to happen. It was the kind of morning most people would forget by the afternoon, if not for one small moment. As she turned near the counter, her foot slipped. It was quick, a sudden loss of balance, then the sound of the cup, the floor, the shock of impact. It was not a dramatic fall down a staircase, it was not a violent accident, just a small fall in her own kitchen. The kind of fall many people might brush off in a minute. For a few seconds, Elena stayed on the floor and tried to understand what had happened. Her heart was beating fast. Her hip hurt. Her pride hurt too. But after a short while, she managed to push herself up, slowly, carefully. And because she could still stand, she told herself the same thing many people tell themselves after a fall. I'm okay. It could have been worse. And at first, Elena really believed that. She was sore, yes, a little shaken, yes, but she could still move, she could still sit down, she could still continue her morning. So instead of treating the fall as a warning, she treated it like an inconvenience, something unpleasant but temporary. But the next morning, Elena noticed something different. Getting up felt slower. Turning her body felt stiffer. Even sitting down and standing back up took more effort than usual. It was not unbearable pain. That almost made it easier to ignore. It was simply enough discomfort to remind her that the fall had left something behind. Without fully realizing it, Elena began moving differently. She took smaller steps. She turned more carefully. She reached for nearby furniture when she did not used to. And what started as a natural response to soreness slowly became a new way of moving through her home, slower, more guarded, less certain. That was when the real change began. The fall did not only affect Elena's body, it affected her confidence. A home that once felt familiar now contained small risks everywhere. The kitchen floor, the bathroom tiles, the step near the entrance. Places she had walked through for years suddenly felt less trustworthy. So Elena started avoiding small tasks. She delayed laundry, she postponed errands. She sat down more often, not because she wanted to become inactive, but because simple movement no longer felt effortless. And once a person begins to avoid normal daily tasks, life can quietly become smaller without anyone noticing right away. What made this harder was that Elena did not tell anyone at first. She did not want to worry her family. She did not want to sound fragile, and maybe most of all, she did not want anyone to start seeing her differently. So she stayed quiet, and in that silence the fall became more than an incident. It became something she was carrying by herself. A few days later, Elena had a moment that unsettled her even more than the fall itself. She paused before entering the bathroom and realized she was nervous. Not because anything was happening, but because she was imagining it happening again. That was the moment she understood the fall had followed her. Even after the bruising began to fade, the fear had stayed. Elena began noticing how many parts of independence depend on confidence. Carrying groceries, reaching low shelves, standing in one place for too long, turning too quickly. None of these things had seemed special before, but now each one felt like a small test. and for the first time in years she found herself wondering something she never wanted to ask. What if next time I can't get up? In the end, Elena told her daughter, not because she wanted help with everything, but because keeping it to herself had become heavier than the fall itself. Her daughter listened carefully, then asked a question Elena had been avoiding. Are you only healing from the fall, or are you starting to live in fear because of it? At a checkup, the doctor explained something simple but important. After a fall, the bruise is not always the only injury. Sometimes the bigger effect is hesitation. Fear changes movement, movement changes strength, and when people move less because they are afraid, even ordinary tasks can begin to feel harder over time. That explanation gave Elena clarity. She realized the goal was not to pretend the fall never happened. The goal was to stop letting that one moment quietly take control of the rest of her days. She did not need to become fearless overnight. She just needed to begin rebuilding trust in her body, one small step at a time. So Elena started small. She stood more often. She walked short distances again. She moved carefully but not helplessly. Slowly, the fear loosened its grip. Her body did not transform overnight, but little by little, ordinary movement stopped feeling like a threat and started feeling possible again. What changed Elena most was not just the fall. It was the realization that independence can feel strong for years and still become fragile in one ordinary second. That does not mean life becomes hopeless, but it does mean small moments deserve respect, especially when they begin changing how we live. So what happens after a small fall at age 70? Sometimes the hardest part is not the fall itself. It is what comes after, the hesitation, the fear, the smaller movements, the quiet loss of confidence. And if that fear is left alone too long, it can slowly reshape daily life. Not all at once, but one ordinary decision at a time. If you enjoy simple stories about aging, health, independence, and the quiet choices that shape later life, subscribe to Second Half Stories.